Hi, my name is James Williams,
My name is Ann Marsh.
and this is Columbia Olympians One-on-One.
So
All
why
right.
are you in Rome?
I'm in Rome because I'm testing the extremes of work from home. And I typically live in New York City, but I gave up my apartment in December of this year, put all my stuff in storage, and have just been traveling around since. It turns out you can look at semiconductor stocks from anywhere in the world.
Right.
Um,
You're not there training.
no, though I did just miss the men's and women's saber teams. They were at a camp here. Did you ever do any camps in Rome at Campi Sportivi?
No, we didn't do any camps we did a camp like near Milan
Oh,
once,
nice.
but I think
That's
more of
a,
our camps were in less desirable locations.
I hear you. And in terms of World Cups, did you have any like maybe it's not nice to like point out places that are not desirable to go to, but I have memories of going to the same town in some exotic part of the world over and over again for years at a time. I don't know if you had that joy as well.
Yes, we had that experience as well, but actually Italy was always my favorite place to go for World Cups. Just because the food's better and it's usually a better atmosphere, and I always did better. And I don't know why, if it was just coincidental or because I was just happier at those events, but we had a World Cup every year in May in Como, and that was my favorite event. And I think that's the event I made the top eight the most number of times. So, and then we actually had two in Italy because now each country is only allowed to have one, I think. So we also had one in Torino. And so that kind of offset the trips to Leipzig, which was
Mm,
kind of the armpit of Eastern Europe, and also offset the ever present Budapest trip in
I have
January. January, always the best.
always in January at the sports Charnock.
Yes,
Uh,
exactly.
yeah, I went to Budapest at least once a year from the age of 15 till when I retired when I was 26. I mean, it's so funny, like I've been there so many times that
Yeah, I
I
know
hear it's
because
lovely not in January.
yeah, they always like, you transition from the junior World Cup there to the senior World Cup there. And the best thing was right when my very first senior world championship team, I had just finished with juniors, and the senior world championships in 1991 were in Budapest, which was
Oh,
still
cool.
a little bit more exciting than my first junior world championships, which were in South Bend.
Ooh. I remember hearing about those when I was young. I actually never made any junior nor cadet teams. So my first national team ever was the 2006 senior world team in Torino. Um,
Oh, well, see, but Torino's pretty good. So
that was great.
especially there's like a cafeteria style restaurant, but the food is still amazing. I don't know if you guys went to that one. You kind of have to just know where it is, and it was right near our hotel every year.
I didn't even know that was possible. Like how is
It's just,
delicious food being served in this format? That was one of the things that blew my mind about Italy.
yeah, it's
Um,
incredible.
so
So
your first senior world team was 91 in Budapest, and then you go to Barcelona in 92. Is that your first?
yeah,
Oh,
Barcelona was my first Olympics, and so they kind of ramped up the qualification pathway for Olympics between 88 and 96. And so we qualified, we actually didn't qualify the team.
oh,
So, and I was the fourth athlete. So I was actually
oh
the
no.
alternate. And at the way that you had to qualify then was you had to be in the, you had, your team had to finish in the top 12 at the World Championships the year before. But the host country got an automatic berth. So really you had to finish in the top 11 if, I mean, because Spain wasn't in the top 12 already.
Mhm.
And so I think we came in 12th at the World Championships. So we missed the spot by one place. And so I thought that I didn't make the team. So I actually just I had taken the minimum number of courses at Columbia that year. So I stayed and did like the summer session because I wanted to catch up with credits. And I remember actually being in my John Jay Columbia dorm room, writing some paper for my science class. And actually George Klombadovich called me and told me that Spain had withdrawn their team because they didn't meet minimum training requirements, I guess, that the Spanish government had set up for them or something like that, or results, I don't know. But so it told me I get to go to Barcelona. So that's where I found out that I was actually going to the Olympics in 92.
That's amazing. And was that your sophomore or junior year in college that you made your first Olympic team?
Um, so actually I had to think about it because I started Columbia in 89, but then I only went for one semester. Then I took off a year and trained in Germany because I wanted to try to do well in the junior worlds and stuff for my last year, which didn't actually occur. But so then I came back. So I was off sequence. So yeah, I guess it was my sophomore year, but it was like my third year after
Hmm.
high school.
And where in Germany were you for that year?
Yeah, it was Bonn. So at
Uh,
the time it was the capital though. So it was a little bit better than it is now, I assume. But yeah, not the same food experience as Torino or Como.
yeah, I went to a couple of cadet like World Cups or something in Bonn, but we had to go to Taube Bischofsheim quite a
Oh,
few. Have you had that
yeah.
pleasure?
So I even trained for a couple, like a week here and there when we had Seven Nations, or I don't know if they had Seven Nations for you guys, or we actually had a World Cup somewhere, and we went there for a week to train because it was conveniently located. And actually, it's not bad. Did you go to the Schloss Cafe?
No, should I? Well,
Yeah,
what is
there's
that?
a couple, Tauber Bischofsheim is very small, but it's actually the chief town for that village subset. So they actually have a pretty good Black Forest cake at the Schloss Cafe. All of the conversations about the Olympics and training and fencing is all going to come back to food, I think, right?
I mean, is that not the most important thing? Actually, when I was going through customs here in Italy 2 days ago, the customs border patrol person, I don't know what their name is, but they said, why are you here? He said, oh, like to eat delicious food. Why else, like, why else would you travel anywhere? He let me in with a nod after that. So
Yeah.
we ate at a Chinese restaurant for dinner almost every night in Tauber.
Really.
I don't think I was doing it right. So the Schloss Cafe,
Yeah.
my training days are behind me. I don't know why I would go to Tauba, which I guess for people listening or watching that haven't had the pleasure, is a really small, and you can probably gather like random, to the extent anywhere is random, town that you might spend a lot of time in Germany. So
Yes. But they did have some Italian restaurants there that weren't bad, and they actually had the Fechter pizza at one of them.
wow,
Like how they have the specialty pizzas, that was one of them, was for fencing. So
wow,
yeah, I don't know why you
cool.
would go. So in general, my theory is that you shouldn't go to a Chinese restaurant in a town where Chinese people wouldn't have like immigrated to.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
for example, in Eastern Europe, like it's probably still worse than China. So I don't think Chinese people who are good cooks immigrate there. So you shouldn't go to a Chinese restaurant, is my theory.
Yeah. Huh. I wonder why we ended up going there. I also really enjoy a lot of German cuisine, like Spätzle, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't remember why that came up, but I have a distinct memory of like hot and
Chinese.
sour soup that was vaguely German, like most nights.
And it was very catchy.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Anyway, so your first world team was 2006?
Was 2006. I had just failed to qualify for junior worlds the year before in '05. That was my last year in juniors. I finished fifth um,
Oh,
in
that's always
the
discouraging, yeah.
in the under 20s, but I had an amazing next year, and I went from 24th in the country in the senior standings to fourth. Were you always good at fencing, Ann? Or
Okay, well,
I know that's a lot to sign up for, but
okay,
you
so
know,
So I think people should understand that between 88, when I started making teams, and 2006, when you made your first senior world team, the US improved in fencing a lot. So it really wasn't necessarily as hard for me to make the team as for you.
Well, yeah, okay, you're going with the cop out of, oh, you know, it
No,
was a
no,
small
no.
pond and I was a big fish, but we're like, you know, were you always
Oh,
like a big, like when you were like at
okay.
14 and stuff, where people are like, you better watch for Ann Marsh? It's
I
okay,
don't,
you can tell me. I won't tell anybody you said this.
well, I didn't start fencing until I was 13. And
Wow.
yeah, I was kind of, because there was no Y10, Y12, or Y14 when I started fencing.
Oh,
I
okay.
actually I did make the cadet world championship team, but the way that you qualified was through the continent. So I had to go to Mexico City to the cadet continental championships, and then they took the top 4 people. And
Wow.
there were only so I'm really happy that I finished 12th at the cadet world championships, but there were only like 14 people. So I think I finished ahead of like the Brazilian and maybe someone else. I don't know. I only won one bout. So the US, I think since that time that I started, also you probably didn't go to 4 World Cups in Budapest where almost every one of your teammates went out in the first round.
Wow,
So
no.
so there is a big difference. It's not really a cop out. So I think now when you make the US team, you're good. You're gonna do well at the international event. Whereas I feel like it was so frustrating for me. And my big challenge at Columbia was to figure out whether I should keep trying to do well internationally because it seemed almost impossible. And so I actually stayed up really, really late one night with one of my suite mates because I was planning to stop fencing after Barcelona because I thought it was
Hmm,
impossible to do well internationally. So I thought I was just wasting my time. And
hmm.
he asked me like all the things I thought needed to happen to do well internationally. And we made this big list. And I thought some of them were possible. And that's why I decided to keep fencing. So your first Olympics was 2008?
Was 2008, and I was not very good. And I wanted to add like maybe it was like harder to make teams when I was competing, but I think we also did have the luxury of having people that came before us and kind of broke like kind of ceilings on what American fencing might look like. Like, there were a lot of examples of like, yes, we can do well at these competitions. So I did want to mention that was yeah. So I wasn't very good for a long time, as I keep reiterating. But in 2006, when I made my first team, I finally got good. I actually broke my foot at practice. I was fencing Seda Jacobson, and my foot got caught in one of the strips at the FC. Did these like metal strips and I got my foot caught, and it was supposed to be a rolled ankle, but one of the ligaments, I guess, ended up like ripping itself, like ripping a bit of the metatarsal with it. I forget, but I was crutching around for a while. Didn't get to train before the upcoming senior NAC. Then ended up winning. I hadn't won anything, so there were my 12s when I started, but I never won any of them. It was awful. I didn't win any Y14s. Blah blah blah. But I finally got good, and I realized if I could like stay at this level, I could go to the Olympics in 2008. That was quite the nail biter. It came down to the very last competition, and I just squeaked in as the replacement athlete in those games. But that was just a whole sleepless. It felt like 2 months leading up to that competition, and it just felt like such a relief to me after that psychologically that I had made it.
Yeah, well, that's great. So did you compete in 2012 as well?
I did, yeah.
Sorry,
That
because
was my yeah.
that's when I was having my kids.
Oh
So
wow.
I wasn't
Yeah.
like as in touch with the teams. I think I stopped in 2001, so I'm kind of familiar with the 2004 athletes. And then I had my daughter in 2007 and my son in 2010. So I feel like the 2008, 2012 Olympics, I was kind of out of touch. And then I was the captain for the 2016 team. So I just missed you.
Yeah, I snuck in this window. I mean, vice versa. Like, I don't think it's possible, at least when I was at Columbia, to go through those doors and have not heard your name.
Oh,
Um,
really?
I keep
Interesting.
thinking like the whatever next Olympics they have. So Rio in this last case, that I'm like, that'll be the last time I know people on the team. But Some really surprising longevity to the team. So I still know a decent number of athletes, or at least fenced when some of them were little kids or teenagers. I've fenced against, I think, everybody on the men's saber team at least.
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
actually good that we have such longevity now, because I think that, people used to just stop after their first Olympics, and then
Mhm.
it's all that years of training and experience. And not only do they not try to make another team, they don't fence at all. And so I feel like for the younger kids, they don't get to benefit from fencing some of these people. So um,
Yeah.
yeah.
I agree. Like I think it was like a big, um, or, it really didn't serve U.S. fencing well for a long time. Just unfortunately, the economics didn't make sense for most people to keep going. Whether you'd made the team or if you just finished fifth, like you could possibly go to next year. I think in a lot of other countries they have like a really deep roster, but in the U.S. the attrition rate was so high, and I think for a long time, or maybe perhaps now also, I don't know, but that's been like a big challenge that U.S. fencing has had to overcome. Uh,
Yep, definitely.
were, so were your qualification paths like pretty easy? I was just thinking about how stressful my first one was. Were you kind of like a shoe-in for the three you went to, or was it?
Well, for the first one, I actually had a much better season the season before. And so it was kind of I just kept doing poorly, and I ended up, just squeaking into the fourth spot. But, I didn't think it was making the team. So it was like a stressful, depressing year.
Hmm.
But I was the youngest person on the team. Everybody was like 6 or 7 years older than me, even though I was like 21 and everyone was like 27, 28, and I think one of the people was 32. So they all stopped after that year. So then in 96, actually, so I finished Columbia a semester early, and I went up to Rochester, New York and trained full time with Bucky. And
Hmm.
I was like ranked in the top 10 in the world for, at the time we were trying to qualify in 96. So that was not as difficult. What was difficult was, trying to, I really wanted to be in the top 8. And I was like always ninth or 10th in the world,
Hmm.
because, I think that, I don't know why, but that was my goal. And so like I was 8th for a while, but like I was ninth or 10th most of the time. And then so that team wasn't as hard to make the team, but it was just, then there was all this pressure to do well at the Olympics. And I came in 7th, which I thought was a great result, but US media really only cares about medals. So, I
Hmm.
was like some big disappointment. And so I was really angry after that Olympics for a
Hmm.
while. Because I mean, just because like, if no one's done it in 40 years, then it can't be a terrible result. I do think we could have done better in the team event, but again, we just weren't that experienced.
Hmm.
And then in 2000, actually, I started medical school after 96. So I was already kind of um, not in the best preparation mode just because of my limited time for 2000.
Hmm.
But I decided to try to make the team in 99 because Iris came in third in the individual and we qualified the team. And so I decided, well, I might as well continue for another year and try to make the team. And so that was exciting. And we came in 4th in the team event. We were so close,
Hmm.
and we lost, I think, 45-43 for third. So
Oh my gosh.
and then in 2001, actually, because we lost to Germany in 2001, we beat them for third, and then I stopped fencing. I mean,
Cool.
internationally, because I was like, okay, it's not going to get better than this. And in residency, I was in Buffalo, and there's like very, very limited fencing.
How are you going to train?
Yeah, there was no place to train, and also residency was so busy. So yeah. So how about
Yeah.
you? What was your pathway like between 2000? You said in 2008 you were the replacement athlete and that it was really stressful. How was it from then to 2012?
So after we qualified, I felt really relaxed. It's like I may not get to fence. I didn't even think I was gonna go to the Olympics. Everything is fantastic. It's gravy. We had qualified the team, but we had sort of mediocre results throughout the '08 season. And we were seeded 7th out of 8 teams for this team
Right.
event. Um, we fenced Hungary, the number 2 team, in the first round, and we ended up beating them 45-44. Woo! That was a nail biter.
Yeah.
So then all of a sudden we're in the top four, and we're fencing Russia. And just a little backstory, at the Athens games, the men's saber team finished fourth. They lost to Russia rather contentiously by 1 point for the bronze medal. So it rhymed a little. It rhymed a little. Keith Smart, whom you overlapped with, and I
Yeah.
was lucky enough to be on the '08 team with, also Columbia Business School grad. And just a crazy. So he was the closer in the Athens games, and had just had the craziest quadrennial. Like he had some really sad family stuff happen that year, and come down with like some like exotic like blood disease, and like hadn't been able to. It was just a real struggle of a quadrennial, but he was just still just a superstar on the team, and he ended up having this insane comeback against Stanislav Pozniakov,
Right.
whom you just like one of the, in men's saber at least, like one of the best fencers of the 20th century easily. And he ended up beating him 9-4 in this final match. And then all of a sudden we overranked seventh in the country. Sorry, in the Olympics, to being in the top two. The team is guaranteed a medal. And I ended up getting to fence in the gold medal match. So I mean, for me, this was not being sure I was going to go to the Olympics to having a gold or a silver medal. So that was just bonkers. And then after that, again, the attrition rate is really high amongst the top eight. I don't know, maybe half of the athletes at least retired that year. So my position was a little bit more cemented, and I think I felt much more confident results and fencing wise, and the qualification felt less stressful or challenging for me going into London as a result. So.
And so, what did you like about the village? Everybody asks, but like nobody really knows what the village experience is like. So, like, what was your favorite part of the village?
I think for me, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts, but I thought the cafeteria was incredibly novel. At both games, there's a McDonald's inside the cafeteria, and it's free. So you can casually walk up to the nice person at the register and just flippantly say stuff like, "I'd like 4 Big Macs and like 5 chocolate." I wasn't wasting this food. It was for multiple people, but it was funny to like put in these big orders, and the person just rings it up, no money's exchanged, and you get they were quite different. I mean, these things ultimately become like housing complexes, so there's like future use in mind, and it like they kind of try and make it into like an Olympic village. That was my experience, but at least like in London, there were like some really fun like game rooms. There was a karaoke like set up. Some of my college buddies came and visited me, and I got them day passes in. We performed a whole set for whoever was willing to listen one afternoon. So
That is
I
really
think those are
cool.
my favorite things. Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you? Yeah.
Well, one of my favorite memories, and I think it was in Sydney because I distinctly remember the British driver getting kind of agitated, but they had these little trams to drive us around, and it so it was like an open air tram, like I don't know, at the zoo they have it near me too. So they just drive you around, and but like there were a lot more people that wanted to get into the tram than what they had seats for, and so people were like trying to move over so people could kind of stand and hold on. And so then the driver was like all agitated because this wasn't safe, so he would stop. Like there were even people like sitting on the roof, right, of the cars. And I mean, they're not going that fast, right? But I just feel like what I loved about this moment though is that the driver kept stopping and trying to kick them off, and they would get off. And then as soon as he would get back in the driver's seat, they'd grab on again. And the athletes who were like in the tram were like doing everything they could to try to help them. Right. So, I mean, and it was like people from like all over the world. And I don't remember why we were all so obsessed with getting on this tram, but I remember I was really tired and I just wanted to sit or be driven. I didn't want to walk like 2 miles to like my little house or whatever.
Yeah.
And so but it was more like kind of like a humorous camaraderie among the athletes. Everyone was trying to help each other, but like no one knew each other. And those are the moments I love most in the village, because I feel like everyone tries to be helpful, but like they have no other link other than just being Olympic athletes. They're not even from the same country or the same sport. So that's what I really like. And then I don't know, I guess in Sydney, I remember so we were fencing Hungary, and I remember I like fenced this girl who I usually do really well against, and she scored all these touches on me, which is not usually what happens to me in the event, right? And I was like devastated because I thought we were for sure going to be ahead after wow, you know? And like she ended up, I don't know what the score was, but she definitely scored more than 5 touches, and like I didn't. And I was so upset. And I didn't want to, I was on the team at that time with like Felicia and Iris, and actually Erin Smart, Keith's sister, was our 4th, right? So I didn't want to like get upset in front of them. So I went in the back, and then I just started like crying, which like wasn't helpful, but I was just, and so this like, I know this really nice Australian volunteer lady was like, it's okay, mate. You know, you just got to go back for the next rep. Don't worry about it. And I was like just crying hysterically. And I was like, but I blew it for the team. And she's like, you just got to keep your chin up, right? And I was like, somehow I found it actually inspiring, when normally I think I would find it annoying. And then when I went back, actually, Iris had somehow brought it back against one of their top fencers. And when I went to hook up, we were only down by like 1 or 2 touches, and I somehow won. And I was like, wow, that really turned around.
That's amazing.
That nice Australian lady was kind of helpful. So
fun. That's so funny. Do you have a lot of like jitters when you're competing at the Olympics versus other tournaments, or how did you?
Well, yeah. So I used to throw up. So I don't know. So, and it actually became kind of a joke. So Bucky and Felicia, I would be like, oh, I feel really sick. Like, I feel like I'm going to throw up. And they'd be like, oh, you're all ready. And I'm like, that's not the response I'm really looking for here. You know? Okay. And it's kind of funny because my daughter fences, and she kind of has the same thing sometimes. So.
Oh, really? Okay.
Well, I dissuaded her from, I think I may have scared her out of it by telling her I used to do the same thing, because she doesn't want to be like me. So. So hopefully.
Interesting that she's picked fencing if, you know, she's trying to pick a divergent path. But does she fence foil or another weapon?
Yeah, foil. So she tried a lot of sports when she was younger, and she always complained about them. So then I decided if she's going to complain anyway, she might as well do fencing, because I want to be there. So, and my husband's a coach, and so his outlook was, you know, because we have all these friends who are like, oh yeah, I fenced, and like I tried to get my kids interested, but they didn't like it. And he's like, well, did you ask them if they want to go to school? Like, he's like, look, your parents fence, I'm a coach. You don't have to be a world champion. If you don't want to compete, you don't have to, but you have to understand how to fence and have an idea what's going on and how to basic calls, right? But I think once we started going to competitions, she really liked it.
Oh, cool. And are you the first person in your family to fence, or?
Yes, definitely. What about you?
Same. You know, my dad grew up playing hockey, and I don't know if my mom played any sports, but, you know, even like pretty late into my career, my dad's a super nice guy. He would sit there and read New England journals of medicine. I think more than he might have been watching. So after the match would finish, I'd come up to him and be, oh, did you win? Who won? And you know, that speaks partly to him being a unique character, but also I think that if you don't have a background in fencing, it can be really hard to tell what's going on. You know, everybody's screaming whether they win or lose, and
yeah. My parents went to a lot of competitions with me when I was younger, so I feel like they kind of built like a friendship network at some of the competitions. So it's actually kind of funny now. My dad sometimes comes if my daughter's fencing, and there's some of the same people.
Amazing.
Like not that many, but there's still some, you know? And so it's kind of funny that like he's finding these people that like he has known for so many years. So it's kind of interesting.
That is nice and sort of tangential to that, but that I really appreciate. There's something I really appreciate about fencing is like just kind of the way like the sport works. I don't emphasize thing, but people aren't really segregated by gender or age at the club level. So if I think of like other sports, like when I tried soccer, playing with all the other like 8-year-old boys, but I got to make friends with people from in really different parts of their life through club fencing, and that's something I really like about the sport.
Yeah, I agree. It's really cool sometimes to have like the veterans fencing with like the Y10 kids. So
Yeah, I think that's so nice. Um, were people blogging at the Sydney games at all? Was that a thing back then, or?
maybe, I mean, uh, I actually can't even remember, but I don't know, like for the Barcelona and for the majority of my travel time, like there was no Wi-Fi. So it would be so helpful in retrospect to be able to buy your tickets online. We had to call like, 800 numbers to like book all the tickets or call a travel agent. So it's kind of different, but I'm trying to think. Maybe people were doing some blogs, but I don't think it was social media the way it is now.
Big thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, I just imagine that's made life so easy. I mean, even like my first sets of competitions, we'd get into some small town somewhere quite foreign to us, and you're jet lagged. So you wake up at 3:30 in the morning. Great. Not only do I have to fence it 8 hours, but what am I gonna do? Like I can't really walk around here in like the middle of the night. Like let's turn on the TV. Oh, there's four like random channels. Maybe not in another language. There's like very few ways to entertain oneself. Like it seems so nice now. And in terms of like following results, you can like watch videotape of matches, and that really wasn't the thing. Like unless you had somebody with a video. As the youngest person on the team for some time, I took a lot of videotape of potential competitors, for the team to review, and that's all just kind
Yeah.
of handled for you now.
Yeah, and somebody was in charge of splicing it all together. It was kind of amazing. Um, I actually, when I was younger, I remember I had someone gave me a VHS tape of the '84 Olympic finals for women's foil and the '88 Olympic finals for men's foil. And I must have watched those tapes like hundreds of times because there wasn't any other tapes that I had to watch. There was no internet or Wi-Fi. And so it's kind of funny how um, I don't know, I think it's easier to now to like watch multiple different fencers, obviously. But I mean, so in '88, Cherioni won. And I just, for me, he's like this magical creature because I watched that videotape so many times. So weird to like have dinner with, because he was the men's foil, like he was one of
Yeah.
the foil coaches for a while. I don't know if
Mhm.
he still is, but it was so weird to have dinner with him, right? Because it's not that he's like my hero, but I just watched the tape so many times that like it's this impressive creature that I never thought I would actually meet in real life. Kind of funny.
How funny.
So,
Yeah.
but I have to say, don't you think for the Olympics, like one of the very best moments is when you go to processing and you get that shopping cart and they just fill it with stuff?
That was something I had been dreaming about before I even qualified. Yes, yes, and then yes again. I remember when everyone came back from the Athens games, like that was like the first time I had moved to New York at that point. That was the first time there were like people that had gone to the Olympics at the same club. And I remember thinking the stuff they had was so cool. I just that I mean I say this as a joke, but like that was a huge motivation to try and go to the Olympics. There's all this cool stuff. Yeah. Where did you do processing, or what was
Oh,
that
I
like?
don't remember. I think I actually don't even remember because so they also, I don't know if they did it for you guys, but like they did it for us for university games and also for Pan Am games.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I made like 5 university games teams and two. I didn't go to one of the Pan Am games, so I went to 2 and then 3 Olympics. So like I did the processing like so many times, and they would show. I don't know if it changed over the years, but they used to show us the same video on doping.
No.
And in the middle of it, they had like the guy was like, if you've taken any medications, make sure you report them here. And he's like talking to some, I don't know, some athlete that's not very bright. And the athlete's like, you mean like Flexol 454? And it was obviously like a blog, like that's one of their sponsors, right? I was like, I watched that video, I think, what, like 10 times, literally.
Wow.
Then the same guy, no matter where we were going for the trip, this guy from the USOC used to come and talk about like how, you know, where you're going, it's really dangerous and you need to be careful. He'd always give the same speech. And like I actually kind of believed him for Barcelona, that there's all this
Yeah.
political controversy about Catalan, right? But there was always something in every city we were going to. And so by the 10th time I was like, really, like I think Sydney is pretty safe. And
Yeah.
he would always be like, and make sure if you're like hanging out with like members of the opposite sex that you use a condom. And I was like, oh my gosh, like why are we talking? Like every single time though, he would bring up the same topics. So it was like having a parent come and tell you like after, so they do the doping, and then I don't know, some kind of medical testing or something, and then the apparel, and then this was like the final guy who would like be like the parent telling you like about all the, you know, safety hazards.
Well, that's great because I love awkward conversations right before I'm going off to the Olympics to
Right,
compete.
exactly. It was, I don't know, did you guys not have that at processing?
No, that or I must have blocked it out, but I don't remember that. Like I remember like being talked to like this will be like the security person that's like embedded with your team, but yeah, I had no sense that China or the UK were going to be particularly dangerous for you know somebody on the US fencing team. You know, no, I just remember the apparel part where they give you this shopping cart and you walk around this huge room and like. Would you like some hats? They're like, yeah, I would love some. It's all these like cool, you know, Nike or Ralph Lauren hats, and they have these like Olympic rings on them. And like, how cool is that? Like, like free clothing, you know, kind of like a value investor mindset. It's like A, free, and then like B, it's like so just cool, you know, to make wow, I could like wear this hat with like rings on it. And then, oh, would you like some shirts? Now let's come over here and let's fit you for a suit. A suit. Like, wow.
Yeah, I know, it's amazing. And you get like, I don't know, like 5 t-shirts, and then you get
Oh,
the rain suit and the sweatsuit and the training suit and the award suit. It's like 4 sweatsuits.
amazing. So much cool
Fun.
stuff. Do you have a lot of your stuff still or
Yeah, well, so I mean, it was really nice that I got to go as the captain, because then I was finally able to replace my luggage, which was kind of getting old, you know, because like 2000 was like 20 years ago.
yeah.
But now I have, so I swear my kids and I, when we travel to these events, like we have like the 2016 Olympic duffel bags that we use for every trip. I don't know what I'm going to do after they wear out, because the ones from 92, 96, and 2000 are kind of old.
Mm.
But yeah, and I have a lot of the apparel, but you know, I did give a lot of it away, and I got things in various sizes, so for other people. So yeah, it's kind of sad, but the Ralph Lauren stuff was really nice.
So cool. Yeah. I mean, some of it I don't know when I would wear, and nothing, not like the garments particularly strange, but I'm talking like white linen dress pants. Like that's a huge liability, you know, like the kind of events where I'd like to wear that. I also think, you know what, somebody might spill a drink on me. I feel like the one time I wore them, they just got completely like trashed. You know, I don't know. I just don't have the I don't know. But yeah, that stuff is so cool. I have like a couple of blazers, I think Olympic rings on them from from Ralph Lauren, and like driving caps and stuff. If I ever become a English gentleman, I'll be set on the wardrobe front at least,
Yeah, that's true.
at least somewhat. So
Yeah,
yeah.
so for one of the like the opening ceremonies outfits for us, it was bright pink. So
No.
I have
Wow.
I have a bright pink blazer with like
Oh,
the Olympic rings and stuff on it, which is still cool, but I'm not sure where I'd wear it where it'd be appropriate.
yeah. Is it Avon? Do you remember that, like the personal like products business that, like, if you were like a top salesperson, they'd give you like a pink Cadillac? I might be totally
Oh yeah, I do
butchering
think
this
it's
and just showing off my
Avon.
poor memory for everyone, but
Yeah, no, I do think it's Avon. But so because when you referee, you can either follow the uniform or you can wear an outfit from the opening ceremonies of the Olympics. And so
what?
I wore it, so I wore it once to referee, but it's got like these weird culottes that are like really bright. So
What's a culotte? Excuse my ignorance. What
it's
is that?
kind of like it's like a skirt, kind of. It's like a skirt.
Oh, okay.
They're really not. Yeah, it's like, but there's a divider, so it's not really a skirt.
Got it. Okay, okay.
So,
Cool. Oh,
so are you
well.
still fencing?
I actually went a couple of weeks ago in Sacramento to fence at my very first coach's club. But other than that, I always plan to. I also would really like to like coach, I think, but it's kind of this like you work from like 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and then I can like schlep my gear over to the club and you kind of have a target on your back. Who doesn't want to beat, the Olympian?
Yeah, you kind
It's
of got to
like,
get over that.
yeah,
And
and
like they can never beat how good you were.
that's comforting. Thank you. But like
Yeah.
for me, it's like I still feel so competitive. But yeah, like before, like if I could parry somebody just like this and hit them kind of effortlessly, the motions are like wide and a little wild right now, and I'm so competitive. So I really dislike losing. But I can't throw my mask anymore and shout obscenities. Like, come on, I'm past that point in my life, so I have to like be very nice and cordial. So I don't. I would like to though, and vets are rapidly approaching for me. So
Yeah. So this is the first year that I can actually make the vet team.
oh,
So
cool.
like kind of an odd year because of the tournaments and the pandemic. So
Hmm.
I'm supposed to be training for nationals, which is like in 3 weeks, but our club has just signed a lease on a new building, so I'm a little bit busy. So I hope I don't embarrass myself at nationals. But already I think I've gotten used to losing to like the two Y12 fencers at our club that are ranked first. I mean, they're ranked first and second in the country.
Oh,
And
cool. Okay.
they actually, one of them came in second at the NAC in the cadet, and the other one made top 16. And so at that point,
Wow.
and then one of them actually made the one that's ranked first also made top 16 in the Div 1 men's split.
Wow.
So it made me feel better about not being able to hit him.
These sound like some fantastic sparring or training partners.
Yeah, they're too strong. I'm like looking for someone a little bit weaker, so I'm trying to focus on the Y10 kids now.
That's such a fun strategy.
No, I mean, I'm trying to get more adults to come to our club. And I think that we will have that now because most people are vaccinated and the nationals are coming up. So I think next week and the week after, we're having our club's training camps. And so I think that in the evening, like every evening, we'll have a lot of adults coming to fun. So I'm hoping that that'll help me get prepared.
Cool. How
But
often do you practice or train a week now?
well, it depends because
Oh,
it
sorry, it's
depends on
pretty
my work
intermittent.
schedule. And then also, my kids or our club, there were no competitions for 14 months because of the pandemic. And so then the competition started on March 12th. And I went, except for the weekends I was working, I went to a competition almost every weekend since then.
Wow.
So I just, usually travel there Thursday or Friday, come back Sunday night or Monday. So then I'm working during the week. So I haven't really, like maybe once or twice a week. So
Wow.
I'm hoping to like ramp it up to 3 times a week starting next week.
Cool. And how often were you, I know, or I remember hearing like Bucky liked to practice a lot. Was that your experience when you were
Yeah, I mean, I think
Yeah.
everybody practices a lot, right? So, I
Mhm.
mean, we would have our lesson in the morning, and then I would run or do some sort of whatever the conditioning of the month was, and then we would have our, drilling and footwork and bounding practice in the evening. So it wasn't that many hours, but it was. I actually have to say it wasn't that many hours. It was just really intense.
Mm.
And then we also were working with personal trainers for like a year or two.
Mhm.
I don't know. It kind of all blends together. There was one point where we were doing some kind of swimming thing at like 6 in the morning.
Wow.
Training. So yeah, I don't remember exactly, but yeah, it was intense training, but I don't think that the overall hours were, more than like other years people are training for fencing.
Hmm. It's really interesting sometimes when you like talk to competitors, and it sounded like some teams, like I specifically remember either being, I don't, this was third person, so grain of salt, but like that the like Chinese national team was like training some number of hours a week that was just like mind-boggling, and I don't know if that was like uh you know to what degree that was true, but I remember like the like 70 hours or something being the number that was quoted, and I just couldn't imagine training that much, and I mean like diminishing returns from hour 41 or 36 onwards for me personally. I was so surprised to hear that.
Yeah, and I also think like it makes you more prone to injuries and things like that. But yeah, I'm sure that they are training hard. The swimmers train like crazy hours. So, but
Bonkers.
but
Yeah.
what I like about fencing is that I think it's a lot more important to have different sparring partners. So we actually need more time to travel than the swimmers, because the swimmers don't really need to
Mm,
go to that many competitions, right?
mm,
How depressing is that? Because I think one of the things people like the most about fencing is that they get to travel to competitions and meet other people. It's really social. And
mm,
so I think that in fencing you have to have that, you have to have that extra time to be able to travel and recover from the travel. So
mm.
I think it's different from other sports in that regard.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It's like some idea of like static versus dynamic also, or like rote versus, yeah,
Like,
fencing really has that.
I mean, you can't just be repetitive, right? It has to be ever changing and creative, and your reaction to your opponent, and also like you have to kind of predict what they're going to do on the next action and set it up right away. And I feel like that is so important to think about. And so just I think just repetition in fencing is not necessarily as big of a focus as it is in some other sports.
Yeah,
So
totally agree. By the way, it's so satisfying. Also, like when you can like predict somebody's adjustment that they're gonna make to you and outsmart them on that is like, I think those are some of my like favorite touches personally in
yeah, because
fencing.
you know that they're going to make this change, and so then you do the next action. I actually have to say though, what's really irritating sometimes is when
Mm.
you're fencing somebody, like you have that mindset going, but then they don't do what they're supposed to do, right? Like I feel like I'd go to a knack or like even just in practice, and I'm like, they're supposed to do this next, but they just did the same thing that they did the last three touches. It's like so frustrating.
Yeah, like did they just outsmart me or did they out
No,
stupid me or what's
yeah,
going on
exactly.
here?
Yeah. So I almost want to sometimes go and shake them and be like, this is the next thing you're supposed to do.
Don't you realize I just hit you in preparation, so you need to finish fast? I can't believe you held your hand again. Yeah.
Exactly. And I do think that that's, one of the things we like so much about fencing is that kind of like, um, people compare it to chess, but I think that's a little snotty because it's really not that complicated. But I do think that, trying to like outthink your opponent for the next action is one of the things people like the most about fencing.
So much fun. Well, I guess that time passed really, really quickly, but I guess we're coming up on an hour here, and should we
Yeah, it's
wrap it up, I guess?
wrapping up. Yep.
Oh, well, it is really nice for me to get to chat with you. I don't know that we've had like a really long conversation, or like I've just heard a lot about you. A la Cherioni, like it's somebody I've just like heard a lot about, but hadn't gotten to speak with very much. So this was a real
Yeah.
treat for me.
Yeah, this was great. I actually have heard your name, but I wasn't sure what you looked like. And I know I read your name on like Fencing Time Live. because even when I was having my kids, I was still following competitions, but I didn't know what people looked like. I was just following results and who's on the team and who's doing what internationally. So it's like really great to actually get to talk to you and fill in some of the gaps of when I was not around. So